to Better Than Yesterday. My name is Michael and I will be your host for today's episode, where we are doing something that we haven't done for a little while on this channel, and something that we bring back today though, and that is book reviews, where we review books that are of interest to us, but not only that we think would be of interest to you guys. And the book that I'm reading today and reviewing today is called Courage is Calling. It's a book by Ryan Holiday, and just to get into the reason why I actually decided to read this book, I stumbled upon the YouTube channel of the author, Ryan Holiday, and his YouTube channel is called The Daily Stoic. This was my first time actually coming across the idea of Stoic philosophy, but it was something that instantly just grabbed me. Oftentimes the principles that I was reading about and hearing about were things that I'd already been putting into practice in my life, and those that I hadn't, I instantly started to put into practice. It was something that just really clicked with me, and ever since then I've been someone who definitely subscribes to a lot of the ideas of Stoic philosophy, and I think it's something that's a very useful tool to have in your mentality and in the way that you go about your life, in just helping you to overcome things and focusing on what's important. And so Ryan Holiday is someone who claims to be a modern day Stoic philosopher, and I think he holds true to that name. So yeah, like I said, when I first found his channel, actually I just was just devouring all of his content on YouTube and his podcasts, for example, and I wanted to try out his books. So this is not the first book that he's written. He's actually got a few books that were also very successful before this one, but this is, however, the first book of the Stoic Virtue Series, which is a new series that he's doing. The new book actually just came out for this series, which is called Discipline is Destiny. However, this is the first book, Courage is Calling, and that is what I have just finished reading, and I'm willing to give my thoughts to you guys today. So yeah, what I would say about these books, going into it, I kind of knew the way that Ryan Holiday thought, like I said, because of his channel, and a lot of you maybe will have found him through his YouTube channel first, and if you're not aware of who he is, I would definitely recommend checking him out there, and if you enjoy what you see there, definitely go into these books, because what's amazing about reading a book is that there's some things that there's a level of depth that you sometimes struggle to achieve through just watching a YouTube video and listening to a podcast. Sometimes podcasts are able to do that, but I think a book is where you really find the amount of detail and depth that you really want, especially if you really enjoy what he's talking about. So this is a book that's quite accessible. I would say that it's good for people. You don't have, sometimes a book on philosophy might seem like a bit of a scary thing to delve into. I know for someone like myself who used to just read fiction and fantasy books, now that I'm getting into more non-fiction and reading about life advice and philosophy, it can be like, is this really what I want to be doing? But this is one of those books that's actually very accessible, and I would recommend to someone who is maybe even just a casual reader or someone who's read fiction before. It's not too difficult to get into. But what I really enjoy about this book is the way that it tackles the idea of courage, which is an extremely important virtue. That's one of the virtues. And what he first talks about in the book actually is the idea of fear and how you can overcome fear in your life. And what I really enjoyed about this book, and if you start reading it, you'll notice immediately, is just how many examples he goes into of people in the past who have gone through all the same things, who have experienced fear. Fear is not something that you can ever entirely get rid of. Fear is almost it's something that's going to be there, but the idea is that you want to be able to overcome it and be able to turn your back and say no to fear when it comes up. So that's what he first actually tackles in this book, is how to completely stand up to fear and overcome it. And that was something that I really enjoyed reading. So roughly the first 100 pages of the book is all about that. And so that's if that's something that you're struggling with in your life, this is definitely a book that would be worth your time. He gives a lot of practical tips, and like I said, he gives examples of people in the past who have gone through these things. And what I really enjoyed about the way he did that is the next part of his book is, it talks about fear, then the next part goes into courage, and then the final part of the book is called the heroic. So like I said, he tackles those things in different areas, but in each way, in each chapter that you read, each chapter is only about 3 or 4 pages long, he goes into how these people in the past, people like Charles de Gaulle of France, Florence Nightingale, the woman who is credited for modern nursing as it is today, Epictetus and Seneca, these are the original Stoic philosophers, and the Spartans, in the wars that they fought in. Frank Serpico, who was someone that I did not know existed, but he was someone that was standing up to corruption in the police force in New York. almost 100 years ago. And there's so many people that he references. And at one point, I almost thought it was that he was mentioning perhaps too many examples of all of these things, because he would spend just a paragraph talking about this person and saying how they used courage in their life and they overcame fear in a certain situation. However, sometimes I think it would have been good to maybe just focus in and give a decent portion of the book to just focusing in on one story. But a lot of the time he was just going from example to example to example of different people in the past and learning from their experiences and saying what they might have done right in a situation and what they might have done wrong. And I must say, you want to come into this book quite open-minded, because he gives examples from all sides. He references the Bible, he references many controversial figures in the past that perhaps you didn't agree with the way that they stood up for themselves or the way that they displayed courage. But in all of these examples, it's something that you can learn from, and that's why it's important to go into this open-minded. But yeah, 100%. So that's probably the only criticism that I have of the book, is that it would have been nice to go slightly more into depth on each of those characters maybe and have a few less. But what I really enjoyed and what inspires me about this book is that it really builds up in a way that you realize that we are all standing on the shoulders of the work and the courage that millions of people in the past have displayed. Our ancestors and the people that fought in wars and created things and stood up against evil in the past is what allows us to live in this world that we live in today. And if we don't act in the same way, if we don't have the same courage that they did, then how can we expect the next generations to stand on our shoulders if we are letting down everyone before us? So it places a responsibility on you in the fact that you are letting down your ancestors and all these people that you read about and how they displayed courage to allow you to live in this world that you live in today. So how can we not display the same courage, and how can we let fear hold us back? And I think that's one of the outstanding things of this book. So I would definitely recommend to get even more depth on what this book has to offer. Definitely give it a read. I'm going to be looking forward to reading the next book in the series, which is called Discipline is Destiny, focusing on a different virtue, which I think will be interesting and something that perhaps you might think that courage is something that's not very relevant in our world, as opposed to something like discipline, which is instantly like, oh yes, you need discipline. But courage is like, we live such easy lives these days. But the thing is, he even gives examples of just businessmen and women, and even himself. Early in his career, he had an opportunity where basically he just had a boss that was tyrannical, and he needed to stand up to that boss to stop evil from ruling, and to just stop him from doing all these really bad things to people around him. And even examples like that of courage, where you're standing up to your boss, for example, and he brings it into everyday life, which makes you realize how necessary courage is, and how we actually probably lack it a lot in our own lives. But yeah, this is the kind of book that just places inspiration on you, and it's kind of thoughts and stories that you want to be filling your mind with. So I would definitely recommend this book to you if you're a young person who's in need of courage. But I genuinely think that this book has value to give to everyone who gives it a read, and anyone from any age or background. It's not specific to perhaps men or women. He gives examples of women in the past and men who stood up. So it's very inspirational. It's the kind of stories, like I said, that you want to be filling your time with and your head space with. So yeah, check out Ryan Holiday. If you like what he's doing on YouTube, then definitely go and give his books a read. He's got many books that I am actually looking forward to read. He's got one which is called Stillness is Key, and he's got a few books. The Obstacle is the Way, and there's a lot of lessons that I think can be learned from his books. So I'm looking forward to checking them out. I enjoyed this book quite a lot, and the style that he used, like I said, of just giving so many different examples is quite unique. So yeah, give this book a read. Hope you've enjoyed this review and hearing my thoughts. If this is a book you've already read, let me know if you agreed with what I said. But yeah, that is it from me, and we'll see you in the next video. Much love from Better Than Yesterday.